Everyone seems to have their own definition of big data, or at least they struggle with the concept. How would you, from an HR perspective, how would you define big data?
So, I mean, I think that's a great place to start. It really, for me, it's about analytics. We've had large amounts of data in HR departments for the last 10, 15 years. What we haven't had is valuable insight. You know, we've created reporting functions and we haven't got to the insight or connected that set of data with business data, with the finance data, with the customer data to actually generate some genuine insights. So when we have done, it's been a very hard exercise. We've had to bring in statistics experts, we've had to bring in data experts to get the data together, and it's been an expensive and long exercise. So for me, it's really about the big data piece is about how we bring all those data sets into one place and we start managing it and understanding that that data is valuable. But the next piece is really about the analytics and how we get the insights out, and we get insights that are going to generate better organisational outcomes. So that's my generic view of it, and I think we're trying to still get there.
Yeah, and I don't think that the size of the data is what matters as much as the quality. So it's absolutely true, HR's always had tons of data and they've not used it effectively, and some of that has resulted in them being complacent about the quality, for example. I mean, just the simplest thing, if you're trying to analyse how people perform in a particular job type across different countries, I've yet to meet an HR department that hasn't got a difference in describing a job role with manager spelled with a capital M, a lowercase m, MGR, SMGR for senior, you know, the SNR instead of senior, whatever it might be, that you just cannot get consistency in data. So the level of cleaning required to get to insight is really problematic, and data scientists can take you a long way with accelerating that, but it's a real problem. So I would suggest that the focus is not on how much do we have, because that could be overwhelming in the first instance, because right now it's disparate and it doesn't necessarily make sense. It's about how do we get the pieces that are likely to help us predict an outcome clean and clear and quality, and even if we cannot retrospectively fix the stuff, let's be sure that from today onward we're collecting it in a more consistent fashion, and from there start moving into how much data is useful to us, rather than assuming to just analyze everything. There are those who just say, and with some cognitive, computing systems, you could just throw tons of data in there and just wait to see what happens. I'm not saying that's never going to have value, but as a first step, getting quality of data is going to be more useful to derive an insight that's likely to predict and return value, as opposed to just volume. And I think that that's also something that HR needs to consider. Typically, they've got a lot of record type data, but how much have they got of the kind of moving data, the social type data, the fact that sort of the less structured stuff about their workforce, it exists, but they're not necessarily not in HR systems. So how do they get what's relevant there to actually help them make HR or workforce decisions?
I mean, speaking about personal experience, I was tracking down data for a business case, and the only way I could get access to that data was tracking back through the access system in the organisation to do it. And I had to step out of the normal HR data set to get me to the point where we can actually present a business case, but also we can start tracking down where the other areas of investigation where we needed to go inside of the organisation. And I think it's a well-made point about how do we get to a quality of data, and we're measuring the right things, and we've got that data set in the right place. And it brings us neatly back to that point of cooperation. You've got to be working with the IT department, you've got to be working with finance, you've got to start talking the same language amongst each other if this is going to work.